Hello, my name is Betty Diaz of the Paramount Veterans Network, and we are here to bring you another inspiring virtual coffee with vets. Today, we welcome Army veteran and business owner Cenita Williamson and our dynamic host and service member, who you may remember as one of the winners of CBS's The Summit, Punkin Jackson. We thank you both for joining us today and look forward to this engaging conversation. Please welcome Pumpkin and Cenita.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome. Hi, Sunita. Nice to meet you. How are you doing today?
Great to meet you too, Pumpkin. I'm doing great. I'm excited about this conversation and excited about
Dang, I'm super,
you.
super excited as well to be able to sit down and have this conversation with you and get into a little bit of your backstory and the reason or how you became an entrepreneur and creating Always Love Yourself. So let's start with a little bit of your backstory and how you ended up joining the Army, why you joined the Army. Let's start there.
That's a funny story. So I'm from Guyana, so I moved to New York when I was 9. So my middle junior high school I spent in New York. I was in college. I was going to John Jay School of Criminal Justice because at the time I wanted to be a FBI agent. So I'm one of 6. So I had
Wow.
sisters that were in college at the time. So first year of college, one of my sisters graduated and then the other one dropped out. So financial aid went out the window. Well, going into my junior and my sophomore year, had to figure out, how I'm going to pay for college. So my friend at the time, she called me up and she said, Sunita, I just went to see the Army recruiter. You got to check him out because the Army is what we should be doing. You'll get a job, they'll pay for your school, blah, blah, blah. So I said, okay, this sounds pretty good. So
Right.
I and I spoke to the recruiter, and I bet I was the easiest contract he's ever made. We sat down, he talked, I signed on a dotted line in the first meeting, and I signed up in October and I left in January. So I went home
Wow.
and I said, Mommy, I signed up for the Army and I'm leaving in January. My mother like almost lost it. She, what? And you're leaving when? So anyway, so I left in January. Funny story, my friend, she signed up also for the Army. She didn't make it. She had gotten medically discharged in boot camp. She took
Uh,
the Army. I'm the one that did the full 4 years. She got out in boot camp. I was like, something's wrong with the story. Okay, that's how I was able to sign up, and it's been like one of the best decisions I've made in my life because I'm still reaping the benefits from everything that I've learned from when I was in the Army.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you said you served for the 4 years?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so once you got in, you saw how the army was working, you did your 4 years. What was the mindset or what caused you to be like, "Okay, I'm going to take this and separate from the army and become an entrepreneur?" Like, what was your mindset with that? Or what was the leading factor that made you make that decision to go into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so I knew from being in the Army, I knew I didn't want to be a mom in boots because I had so many friends around me that, and I saw the challenges that came,
Yes.
and I knew I wanted to have children. And in my third year, I met my husband, and we were dating heavy, and I'm like, okay, this is probably going to go somewhere. So I knew I didn't want to be a mom in boots, so that's why I got out. But
Mhm.
like for most people, you can't transition from the Army directly into entrepreneurship because most of us we don't have that financial backing at the time. So
Right.
route to entrepreneurship was kind of it wasn't a straight line. I got out of the Army, I went to work for the federal government. I worked in the US Attorney's office because in the Army I was a paralegal specialist, so that was a nice transition into the US.
Mhm.
Did 3 years there, and being in the government, um, moving up is a little slower, and usually someone needs to retire before you're able to, get a position, a senior position. So I left, the federal government and went into corporate.
Mhm.
And I spent, 19 years in corporate. But throughout that entire journey, I always had a desire to own my own business because
Hmm.
that came from my mother. And while my mother had a full-time job, she always had a side hustle, whether it was she was a seamstress, she was in sales, she was catering, she always had something on the side. And what that taught me is you shouldn't be tied, or your financial security shouldn't be dependent on your employer. You
Absolutely.
have way for you to make sure that you can ensure your financial security. So for me, entrepreneurship was that. So fast forward, I'm in corporate, right? And I'm probably about 13 years in. I've been working for Fortune 50, Fortune 1000 companies, helping them build their department, build their business groups, increase sales. All this time I'm building businesses for them. And I said to myself, you know what? If I can do it for these big companies, I could do it for myself. So I decided that I was going to purchase a franchise while I was still working full time. And the reason why I decided to do that is, you know, it's fear. You don't want to make a big financial decision that's going to impact the rest of your life.
Right.
Out having some level of security. So I said, you know what? I'm going to buy a franchise. The reason why I decided to buy a franchise is you're basically getting a business in a box.
Hmm.
I wanted to maintain my day job because I wanted to make sure that I can be successful in this new space. I never wanted, with my entrepreneurship, for my decision to own a business to negatively impact my family. So that
Hmm.
cutting one financial resource off and going into entrepreneurship, that was never something I was comfortable with. So that's why I did it while I was still working full time, and I did it for almost 8 years, where I was running my business, and I was an executive in a Fortune 50 company.
Wow. And so the business you're talking about is the European Wax Center franchise that you were able to open? Okay, and that's two completely different things. You're talking about being in the legal system and then going into beauty and wellness, basically, because there's so many different franchises out there that you could purchase. So, what made you go into the beauty and wellness, doing the European Wax Center franchise, and then becoming a licensed esthetician and then creating Always Love Yourself, your brand that you were able to create? So how, like, what was that transition? Because legal and beauty are two vastly different things.
Yeah, it's like you have that passion, right? But sometimes the passion starting out doesn't pay the bills. So that's always
Mm,
been you, and you figure out a strategy. Okay, how can I earn money? How can I create my financial security until I'm at a place where I can invest in my passion? So beauty has always been a part of me. It's been a part of my family. My aunt, she used to sell Avon, and she would give us all these products. As a kid, I would use them. So it's always been a part of me, but I just couldn't see the path when I was young to go into that field and sustain myself.
mhm,
So I've always had a passion for wellness. I've always loved skincare, always loved the spa experience. And funny thing is, I was a client of the European Wax Center. And at the time when I was thinking about buying a franchise, we explored multiple different franchises, but the European Wax Center was closely aligned with the beauty.
mhm.
And it was a brand that I was familiar with because I was a client of theirs for 2 years before I bought a franchise. So, I would be going in to get my waxing, and I'm probing, asking the wax
Right.
specialist, "So how do you earn? Do you get salaried? Is it tips? Where do you get your products from?" So I'm, probing subtly
Yeah.
into the business. And, I got to the place, I was like, I love this brand. This is closely aligned with my long-term dream of opening a full service spa and having a skincare line. This is it.
Mhm.
And so I made a decision to buy the franchise.
Wow. Wow. Okay. And so I guess how long after you bought the franchise were you like, okay, I want to create my own brand in beauty and wellness? How long was that period?
So that period, It was probably about 4 years into the franchise. I'm
Okay.
8 years now, and so here's the thing about a franchise, right? You have to go into the franchise eyes wide open. So
Mm-hmm.
the benefit of buying a franchise is you get a business in a box. The downside sometimes of a franchise is you get a business in a
You get
box.
a business in a box.
Structured. What you see is what you get. They have their products they didn't want you to sell. They have their procedures they want you to follow. So everything is defined.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I saw needs that weren't being met, needs for mature women, women of color. And, I said to myself, I want to create a line that not only caters to mature skin, but also caters to women of color. And
Mm-hmm.
not only is it a skincare line, I want women to use the products as a ritual. So when they're using it, they're taking time out of their busy day and they're saying, you know what, I'm going to focus on myself. I'm going to focus on my skincare and I'm going to use this product that I know it's clean, it's good for me, but this is going to be my timeout. So that's really where the Always Love Yourself name came from because as you're using my products, I want you to think that you know what, I'm giving back to myself. I'm taking care of myself through skincare.
Mhm. And I guess that's really what motivated because I was looking on your website and your business is very you're very big on taking that time out to do self-care and to love yourself. And so I guess that's what created your business model and the name of Always Love Yourself and I love it. And I'm a person like I'm one of those people that are always like reading labels. Is it animal cruelty free? Is it toxic? Does it have parabens? All of that stuff. And I saw that your products were free of all of that, which was important to me. But how important was that to you to create a product free of all of those toxins and safe for the environment?
Yeah, so that stemmed from two things. So my daughter's 14. So when she was born, she had horrible eczema. So
Mm,
we're trying to figure out what products we can use on her skin that was safe and it wouldn't irritate her skin. So my husband and I we kind of played around with creating products, buying pure shea butter and natural oil, trying to put some things together. We created balm. So from her being born, I was very sensitive to the ingredients and the products that we put on her skin. So fast forward, 10 years or so, my mom got sick because my mother had cancer and she passed away from cancer. So when she had cancer first, it went away, it came back, but when it came back the second time, I became hypersensitive on, what's causing this? Is it something that she's eating? Is it the food? Is it the skincare? So I started doing a lot of research on just the products that she was using and the ingredients. And that's when I realized we take so much for granted with the products that we put on our skin.
hmm
Um, and I think subconsciously we assume, companies they're gonna make good decisions about the ingredients, and it's
Not at all.
that's when I realized that a lot of companies are not doing that. So that's when I became it became even more urgent for me to
Mhm.
create a line where it's safe, it's clean. So as you're using the products, you can be rest assured that you're not putting any kind of harmful chemicals in your body. Because
Yeah,
your skin is your largest organ. And it's like when you think about the lotions, the perfumes, the shampoos, the condition, all of those things as you're layering. And if you're not using clean products, it's just toxic to the
absolutely. Absolutely. And that like I said in the beginning, that's something big for me. Like I love I love a good smell good and a good product like the rest or anyone else, but I also am very big into just making sure that it's not damaging my body as I'm putting it on. And I want it to be as clean as it possibly can be, with these products. So I think that's amazing that you actually went that extra step to make sure that these products are good and safe for everyone to use. So I applaud you for that. So thank you. And so outside of their business, you've offered career coaching and workshops for veterans and young women. So what drives that mission?
I've been really fortunate in my journey. Like I said, the Army was one of the best decisions I made in my young adult life, just from the leaders that I met and the experience that I was able to have. Um, and I've learned a lot. And, this is just my way of kind of paying it forward. I'm all
Mhm.
about helping women create a path to get to that thing, whatever that thing is that feeds your soul. So
Mhm.
if that means that I'm sharing some of my experiences, some of my fumbles, some of my mistakes, um, to help you along that path, I'm all for it. So it's really about paying it forward and helping another woman kind of achieve her goals.
Yeah, and doing that, have you had any like standout moments from those types of workshops? Have you had people reach back and be like, "Thank you so much. Now I'm a successful business owner, or I'm doing this, or I've achieved my goals." And how does that make you feel as a woman and someone that's in the business and giving back?
Mhm. So one story kind of sticks out in my mind because this is a woman that I was coaching that she had a similar kind of work ethic as
Hmm.
I have. And so she was working for a big company. She worked remotely, which was good for her. It helped her kind of balance her personal life. But she felt like she did not have control of her workday. So she was working long hours. And then because she was working from home, her kids would come home from school and then she would feel conflicted about working while they're home. And then she would get somewhat resentful with her kids because they wanted her time. And all of this
Right.
was coming from the pressure that she was putting on herself. And the lack of control that she had for her own schedule. So one of the things I worked with her on, which is in my journal, is about there are two things. One is owning your schedule, right? And the second thing is B level performance. So owning your schedule is all about not every meeting that comes through your inbox, that means you need to take it, right? Because
Hmm.
often in meetings and you accept it, you go to the meeting, you don't know what it's about, you don't know what your role is, and it's eating up your time. So really being mindful of asking questions around, okay, what is my role in this meeting? What is
Hmm.
your expectation of me in this meeting? And a lot of times it'll surprise you where people are like, oh, I don't know what your role is. You within someone's department, so I just threw you on the invite. So I kind of
Right.
get tools that I've used to kind of take her time back. And then
Hmm.
the other is her day job was not her passion. It was her financial security and it paid the bills. So, but she was giving 110%, working these long hours, then becoming resentful of her kids because they wanted to spend time with her. So I said, why are you giving 110% to a company and a job that you're not passionate about? Bring your
Hmm.
B level performance, right? B level, that's still good performance. You still get a bonus. You're still doing your work, but you're just not going at that A plus level 110%, so that you can create space for your family and create space for that plan that you want to put together. So it was so funny. She said to me, she said, okay, Cindy, I'm going to try it. So the way that she started doing time blocks in her calendar. So she blocked out every day between 4 and 5. And what I said to her is, you block that time out. That's around the time your kids come home. You have an hour devoted time to them. If you need to get back on the computer after that, you know that you've spent time with your kids and you are not feeling conflicted.
Hmm.
So she said, yeah, I tried it. And you know what? Most days I do not go back to work.
Nice.
I use that time as my time with my kids, and then I look at my calendar and I look at my to-dos, and most of the time, the things on my list, I can take care of tomorrow. So that was
Wow.
like one of the major wins for me because I know what it feels like where you have a demanding schedule, you have all of these deliverables, you have things that are urgent, and you feel conflicted about do I invest my time with my financial security that's paying the bills, or do I spend,
Hmm.
you know? So
Right.
I think it's all about, just having some tools to kind of help you navigate.
Absolutely. And I know like in the military too, a lot of us get very like job focused, and the military is a 24/7 job, right? And I say all the time like if everything is important, nothing is important. Like everything cannot be at the top of the list. And you want to go 100% at your job because it's your name, right? And it's something that you've decided to do professionally. It pays the bills, but also you have to be able to carve out that time for your family, that work life balance. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, look, yes, we have to give the military 110%. But also, if something happens to you, if you're not taking care of yourself, something happens to you tomorrow, the military is going to replace you tomorrow. You know what I mean? So you have to take that time to give back to yourself, refill your cup, give that time to your family, take time for your self-care, your self-love, because all of that matters and all of that goes into being able to be the best for your job as well. So that's awesome. And it also shows you, because you said the journaling, like journaling is not just about writing your feelings, but it's also able to use it as a tool to help, um, I guess, navigate your day or to give you more time and power back, which I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, and that's one of the things I wanted to create. I didn't want to create, you know, journaling feelings, right? Feelings are good. I'm all about good.
Right.
But I think that we have goals that we want. Sometimes we get discouraged. So it has goals and milestone tracker. It has affirmations
Hmm.
to keep you going, when you feel like you want to be discouraged. It has a calendar for you to write down, okay, what are the top two things I'm going to eliminate from my schedule?
Hmm.
Create space for me to work on my plan. So it has multiple different things that helps you kind of staying focused on your plan.
Right. And have you seen, I'm sure like a lot of veterans, probably you work with quite a few veterans, have you seen them be able to benefit from that type of journaling style?
Yes, and so one of the things I've noticed with, and I think this is just part of the military culture, is a lot of veterans, they want to take on everything all at once and say, okay,
Yes.
do this, and then you know um become discouraged when they're not seeing the results. So
Hmm.
what the journal allows them to do is kind of break it out in chunks, because this
Hmm.
is a big step that you're doing, right? So this is a major transition, so you want to make sure that you're thoughtful and you're thinking about all of the different ways that it's going to impact your life. So the journal allows you to chunk it out, and so that's like the big aha that I've seen with veterans is, kind of stepping back and not jumping in so hard, uh,
Hmm.
chunking things out.
Right. Because the military, they teach you go, 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 go. Right. You did mention that joining the army was a huge thing that was a part of your life and a major stepping stone. How did the army help you in the transition, or not even the transition, but into owning your own business? Like, what tools did you take from the army that were super helpful in owning your own business or even starting the franchise in itself?
Yeah. The army for me, um, it involved a lot of figuring it out. There wasn't really a lot of hand holding. And, for my particular job, I worked in a JAG office. So that's the legal
Hmm.
office that, you're either putting out a soldier or punishing them for something, or you're creating a last will and testament. So the people that I work with, they were colonels and sergeant majors. So I had to do a lot of behind the scenes research before I even asked the question, because the expectation was you need to go figure it out. I don't
Right.
be hand holding you and answer. So for me, that's the way that transition into entrepreneurship is. I don't know anything about. I know conceptually what it's like to run a private business. I've been working in corporate business, but that's very different. Retail is very different from corporate. So I
Absolutely.
figured it out. a lot of research, talking to a lot of other franchisees, to try to learn the business, because there wasn't anyone really there to kind of hold my hand and walk me through the process. So that's a big thing that I took away from my experience in the Army, figuring it out and leadership skills, because sink or swim.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I guess also, what mindset or belief helped you persevere on the tough days, especially balancing the executive roles, families, and business ownership? Like, do you have a set, like a mantra, I guess, that you're like, this is what I live by, and this is what helps me get through?
I don't know if I will call it a mantra, but it's something that I remind myself of is with every interaction, every transition, every company, I'm bringing myself. And so
Absolutely.
what it means is, I joined the Army and boot camp was tough. I had some moments that I didn't think I could do, but I did. I was in corporate America for almost 20 years, had some tough moments, but I did it. So I kind of look back on my past performance to kind of encourage me to keep going. So what I say to myself with every interaction, I bring myself to it. So if I've done it before, I have the ability to do it again. So that
Hmm.
keeps me inspired and keeps me motivated. I think
Hmm.
sometimes when we start in a new environment, we think, oh my God, am I going to be able to do it? Are these people going to respect me? Or, all of these fears come up, but you have to remind
Right.
yourself, you've done something like this before. It may not be exactly like it, but you've done
Right.
skills. You're just
Hmm.
starting a new environment. So it kind of keeps you inspired and keeps you encouraged to keep moving.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of inspiration, who was your inspiration in the army? And now, who is your inspiration as you have um, journeyed on this road of entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So, my parents they've always been my inspiration.
Hmm.
Like I mentioned, I was from Guyana. So when we moved to New York, in 87, my father, he was already a high ranking police officer and he left that position and
Wow.
as a security guard. And my mother, she was a school teacher and then left that position and then started working as a home health aide. And so they completely recreated their lives in New York and at the time with 5 children. My brother was born here. So when I look at, what they were able to do and they were still able to provide a comfortable life for us, that's been my inspiration. And the lessons
Absolutely.
that I've learned along the way about, being financially responsible, creating other avenues to make money, saving, all of that came from my parents. So they continue to inspire me.
Awesome. That's amazing. It's so crazy how, or not crazy really, but how much your parents influence your decisions as an adult, or how much they influence your life in general. So it could be a positive or it could be a negative, and so to have those parents that literally put everything aside to come to America for their children to have a better life is just, it's amazing, and it's definitely inspiring for sure. So but looking back, what advice would you give your younger self as you're exiting the mirror or preparing to leave the service, especially around, purpose and self-care? And would that be advice that you would give someone now as if they were preparing to leave the service?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, don't be afraid to dream big, because when I got out of the army, it was like, okay, um, I have the skill, right? I was a paramedic
Hmm.
in the army. I know how I can transition, but it was like, you know, I felt like I was starting from scratch, even though I had
Yeah.
still felt like I was starting from scratch. So it was a lot of fear and anxiety that was involved in that transition. And what I would tell my younger self is same thing. You're bringing yourself, right? You have that
Right.
leverage that experience in a new environment. So don't be so afraid. You got this.
Right, right. And I think that's huge because I've noticed being in the Air Force myself that when people want to transition or get out and not retire, a lot of times people that are still in higher ranking are kind of fear based and telling them, like, that's not the decision, don't do that. Like, you have a set job now. And it's like, but yeah, there's still life outside of the military. Like, give me the tools to help me prepare to separate. Don't try to fear me into staying if it's something that I truly don't want to do. So that advice is big because a lot of times people do get feared into staying when it's not really what they want to do. They have passions and dreams for other things, and it there's life, and you're proof there's life outside of the military. You can take what you've learned, you can use the military as a stepping stool to create and finish your dreams that you want to accomplish. So that you're amazing, and I thank you for being that inspiration, not only for just veterans but for women veterans as well. And so that leads me to my last question that I have for you. What is one lesson that changed your perspective and that you wish more people knew?
Um, so, um, transitioning from the Army, the Army is structured, you have the chain of command and, the senior folks in the chain of command, they're kind of viewed as God.
Yeah.
So when I transitioned out of the Army, I kind of took that kind of leadership approach to managing
Hmm.
people, and I had to step that back a little bit because, that's not the environment. They're not used to that.
Right.
So what I learned is the big thing is really developing an emotional connection with people. And
Hmm.
you're managing people, that's whether you have a business and that's your clients, you're managing your staff. That's what the big thing is developing an emotional connection with the people around you, demonstrating that you care.
Absolutely.
That ultimately will open doors for you, not just personal doors, but just open doors to communication, open doors for respect. So that with my transition, I had to quickly learn that because corporate is not about that army.
Right.
Like, girl,
Right.
what you're talking about, but I'm not doing that. You know,
Right.
so I had a couple of reality checks, regarding that, but and it's completely changed my perspective how I engage with people, and even people on my team in the business and just in general.
Yeah, that's definitely something huge because the military teaches you like one way, and then you get out and you're like, oh, wait, everybody's not like, I cannot speak to people that way.
Funny, and it's being on the other side of it, being in corporate America and seeing other veterans transition. And, I've seen people who are able to make the pivot, and I've seen people who just couldn't do it. They just
Hmm.
make that transition. And unfortunately, it leads to isolation, you know, uh,
Yeah.
and um, it's tough, but
Yeah. It's hard. It's a hard transition, especially if you don't have anything set up, and if you're one of those people that is just really difficult for change anyways. And say you've been in 20 plus years and this has been your way of thinking for that amount of time, from the time you were 18 years old until well into adulthood. So it's hard for that change and that transition. So I can see how that could definitely lead to isolation and feeling lonely. And, in the military, you have your brothers and your sisters in arms, and you're with these people every day. And you are learning about their families and all of these things. And in corporate world, it's kind of not that. People have their own lives. They come to work, they go home. So I can definitely see how that transition would be difficult. But Cenita, I thank you so much for having this conversation with me and talking about your transition from the Army into entrepreneurship, into your beautiful brand, Always Love Yourself, and for just sharing some time with me and sharing your expertise and your knowledge.
Well, thank you so much, Punkin. I truly enjoy this conversation, and hopefully this won't be the last conversation that we
I
have.
hope not. Yes.
So we'll talk soon, and good luck to you.
Thank you. I got to get to work, girl.
Duty calls.
Right.
All right, take care.
Thank you.